Even though you won't start working on the project before an agreement is finalized, you should start planning how the project's going to go. What you're trying to do here is to manage to meet the project deadlines without killing yourself in the process. You want to be able to start the project with the right attitude and the right momentum. You should prepare an internal timeline for the tasks and the deliverables, and that should take into account your teammates' availability, projected delays. With experience, you know that certain things never happen when they're supposed to happen. Client bottlenecks, unexpected turns. How do you plan for the unexpected? Plan for the fact that there's going to be something unexpected. Plan for holidays, for client deadlines, for other projects you are working on simultaneously, to make sure that your work-life balance isn't getting axed in the process, and any number of other things that might come into play. We tend to underestimate how much time we have available to work on things. We also tend to overestimate how quickly we can do things. There's an important law of project management, just a law of the universe. It's called Hofstadter's law. It always takes longer than you think, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. You should be revisiting your plan periodically when you prepare the progress reports. You should do so internally, but also externally, within the team and when you communicate with the client. In order to get project management to work for you, you need to have a sense of what you spend your time on. You definitely must take into account that you need to sleep, that you need to eat, that you need to work, that you need to go to school if you're a student, or spend some time learning if you're a full-time consultant, and that you need to commute to work or school and run errands. The first thing you need to do is to set reasonable numbers for each of these activities. Do you know how much time you spend commuting or on errands during the week? Do you know how much time you sleep during the week? Do you know how much time you should sleep? Here's a suggestion for these numbers, either as a student or as a full-time consultant. It leaves you plenty of time to do things other than the work essentials and the everyday life essentials. Does that leave you enough time to do the other things you want to do? To take care of yourself, of your relationships, of your family, of your hobbies? You get between 3 to 4 hours a day to do these other things. That might not be enough. And that's okay as well. You just need to know it before you embark on projects. If after going through this time management exercise, you realize you do not have the time to work on a project, then don't take on a project. You will not be able to get the time that you spent on the project back. Assuming that all the individual team members have the availability for it, then you can start thinking about project management for the team as a whole. Your first step might be to come up with a work plan that takes into account the high-level phases. You'd follow the methodology here as well. Presumably you have things like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and you're using some very generic names for the steps. Data gathering, conceptual model, simulation creation, and so forth. Once you've nailed down the high-level phases and their expected durations, then you can start breaking them down into various tasks. You might start with task categories, and then within these task categories you might have subtasks or specific, and here you will have potentially deliverables associated to each of these tasks and a new expected duration. The previous level of granularity is a work plan you might decide to share with the client. It actually looks pretty good in a proposal. But for project management at the team level, it is not nearly enough. You'll want to further break down the tasks and the subtasks into activities for which you'll assign team members and subject matter experts on the client side. The work plan samples I showed you were from a multi-year project where we had a fairly big team and a lot of subject matter experts. For smaller projects, that might be overkill. I don't want you to misunderstand. If you can go to the activity level, you should. It takes a lot of time to set up properly, but the rewards are many when the time comes to actually run the project. You might have something of a much simpler nature as well to work with: the tasks, the estimated time, the suggested timelines, and any deliverables that might come along. As long as you keep in mind that the work plan is a guideline and that you may need to revisit it and change it internally and externally once unexpected stuff happens, you'll be fine.